Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 English News Edition, and these are tonight's headlines. African European Unions expressed their concern over the detention of President Bazoum, and the United States holds the military council responsible for his safety. In the Middle East, one Palestinian was killed by the occupation forces during the storming of the Tulkarm camp, and several others injured by the suppression of an anti-settlement march east of Kalkilia. The only thing Ukraine really needs is to surrender, which could very likely pave the way to peace. But neither Washington nor Kiev want such an outcome. Dmitry Medvedev. Thousands leave the resort of the Hawaiian island after massive fires, and dozens of dead and missing people due to the torrential rains in China. Hello again and welcome. The military council in Niger has once again accused France of violating its airspace through the military airplane that tried to land in the Oulet region. In a televised statement broadcast on Friday, the military council confirmed that French military airplane had flown for hours for Nigerian airspace, causing communications and surveillance means to be cut off. Meanwhile, the military council denounced the repeated move, considering it is unacceptable and proving that the French forces have hidden agendas.
Des forces françaises, en dépit du communiqué numéro 25 en date du 9 août 2023.
After statement number 25 of August 9, 2023, whereby the military council denounced the illegal, suspicious and dangerous maneuvers of the French forces aimed at cutting off all communication means to escape Niger surveillance systems while flying over our territories for several hours. We notice once again the following. Wednesday, August 9, 2023 at 10 p.m., an M400M military airplane tried to land in the Arlit region without a previous flying plan, causing communications and surveillance means to be cut off. The military council, the transitional government and defense and security forces denounced the lack of transparency and the non-recourse to Niger's authorities to request a flight authorization. This behavior deals a blow to our security. The repeated actions and continued unacceptable practices prove that the French forces do not respect the law and have hidden agendas. Therefore, the defense and security forces and the people in Niger are mobilized to thwart any attempts to destabilize the country.
Déterminé à faire échec à toute entreprise de déstabilisation.
Thousands of Nigerians demonstrated on Friday in front of the French army base in the capital, Niamey. The demonstrators chanted anti-France slogans some 24 hours after a meeting held by the Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS, in the neighboring Nigerian capital, Abuja, during which it gave the green light for a possible military intervention to reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum into power. The chairman of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, expressed serious concern over the deteriorating conditions of the detention of Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum. Faki considered it unacceptable to treat Bazoum by military authorities that turned against him, stressing in the same statement his unwavering support for the decisions of the Economic Community of West African States, which decided yesterday, Thursday, to deploy a reserve force to restore constitutional order in the capital, Niamey.
The heads of state signed an agreement to deploy forces from some countries, including Côte d'Ivoire, where we'll provide a battalion. My country saw that there are financial resources available for the operation. If it continues for 3 months, we will guarantee its budget, and so that our soldiers and officers who will participate in this operation do not fail in anything. Côte d'Ivoire has announced its readiness. and orders have been given to the army commander to start and mobilize forces for their participation in the ECOWAS group operation.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Thursday that Washington will hold the military council that took power in Niger accountable for the safety of President-elected Mohamed Bazoum. Earlier, Bazoum's party said that and his family were being detained under cruel and inhuman conditions at their residence.
I spoke to him, I think, most recently the day before yesterday. I've spoken to him about half a dozen times since these military leaders came in, imprisoned him, and disrupted the constitutional order in Niger. We have deep concern for him, for his family, for his security and well-being. We've also made clear to the military leaders that we will hold them responsible for his safety and well-being.
The European Union expressed its deep concern about the deteriorating conditions of detention of Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum, who was overthrown by military coup, and called again for his immediate and unconditional release. And the head of the European Union diplomacy, Josep Borrell, wrote on his page on the X Twitter previously website that President Bazoum and his family will, according to the latest information, be deprived of food, electricity and health care for several days, stressing that nothing justifies such treatment, especially since Bazoum devoted his life to work to improve the daily life of Nigerians, as he put it. A spokesman for Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS, said on Friday that chiefs of staff of the Black armies intend to hold a meeting next week to discuss developments in the situation in Niger, including the development of plans for a possible military intervention. And the French news agency quoted regional military sources as saying that meeting will be held tomorrow, Saturday, in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, in light of the decision issued by the leaders of ECOWAS countries during the summit in Abuja on Thursday to deploy the organization's reserve force as measure with the call to restore constitutional order in Niger. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara said that the ECOWAS group agreed to deploy reserve force to restore constitutional order in Niger, stressing its readiness to do so as soon as possible. Upon his return to Abidjan after attending the emergency summit of the Economic Community of West African States Thursday, Ouattara revealed that his country will provide a battalion of 850 to 1,100 soldiers, along with soldiers from Nigeria and Benin, and other countries will join them. The same line of thought, the Russian Foreign Ministry said on Friday that a military solution to settle the crisis in Niger could lead to long-term confrontation and destabilize the situation in the Sahel-Sahara region. In a statement, the Russian Foreign Ministry stressed that Russia supports the mediation efforts undertaken by Economic Community of West African States with the aim of finding ways out of the current crisis. Now to a different topic. The visit of the Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf to Washington reflects the aspiration of Algeria and the United States of America to strengthen economic partnership between the two countries outside the hydrocarbon sector in order to ensure productivity through American investments in Algeria, especially in light of the substantial reform brought to Algerian investment law. More in this report.
A new economic dynamic is marking the relations between Algeria and the United States, which is aimed at reviving and strengthening U.S. investments in Algeria. The recent visit of Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf to Washington and his various meetings with high-ranking U.S. officials, led by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, clearly demonstrate an Algerian-U.S. aspiration and willingness to strengthen bilateral partnership through the expansion of investments to other fields outside hydrocarbon sector. Mr. Attaf met with U.S. businessmen and economic operators who are members of the Algeria-U.S. Business Council, to whom he stressed the need to open new prospects for Algerian-U.S. cooperation.
I met yesterday Secretary Blinken, with whom I had a very fruitful exchange, as candid, as full of expectations, confidence, and optimism. And let me tell you that you have been the subject of a good deal of our conversation. Indeed, we agreed on the need to strengthen the presence of American investors in Algeria.
The entry into force of the new investment law, with the creation of the Algerian Agency for Investment Promotion and the single window for investments, remove, according to experts, the obstacles and hurdles before foreign investors. While specialists expect that the next 5 years will be a real milestone to boost U.S. investments in Algeria in light of the new legal investment arsenal that gives strong guarantees to foreign investors, including the investment in the field of energy and fuels.
Today, for the first time, we see the major companies in the hydrocarbons field are present and operating in the hydrocarbon field in Algeria. An agreement was signed with Occidental, and there is a memorandum of understanding underway with Chevron and with ExxonMobil. The presence of these three large U.S. companies in our country reflect the special interest that the U.S. grants to Algeria.
This dynamic comes at a time when Algeria has become the third trading partner of the United States, with a volume of trade exchanges amounting to $3.1 billion during the first 9 months of the current year.
The Tunisian Coast Guard are carrying out vital missions to intercept and rescue migrants, including Tunisians and others from the sub-Saharan Africa, who are risking their lives to cross the Mediterranean towards Europe. More in this report.
In a quest for a better life in Europe, migrants from sub-Saharan African countries find themselves intercepted by Tunisian Coast Guard's patrols of the coast of Sfax. A perilous journey in rickety, overcrowded boats becomes a cry for help as they are intercepted, showcasing the desperation of those who embark on such treacherous crossings. Screaming, protesting and crying as well. Scenes clearly demonstrate the suffering and the magnitude of the danger that threatens the huge numbers of immigrants who ride death boats and are destined for Europe.
In the last month, we managed to capture around 3,000 migrants. 90% of them are Africans from sub-Saharan Africa and 10% are Tunisian.
The boats not only carry migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, but also Tunisians. These journeys frequently end in tragedy, with incidents of boats sinking, leading to death. Just last week, a boat sank resulted in the death of at least 11 individuals, with 44 others still missing.
Our main priority is saving human lives. There is no doubt about this. As you have witnessed in the last 24 hours, we managed to conduct multiple rescuing missions. 3 boats were broken. We rescued them. It was no easy task.
According to the official statistics, Tunisia has prevented around 1,400 migrants from reaching the Italian coast since January, a fourfold increase compared to the same period last year. This surge underscores the magnitude of the disaster. Meanwhile, the United Nations report that over 1,800 people have lost their lives in the central Mediterranean region since the beginning of the year, making it one of the most perilous migration routes globally.
In Libya still, the head of the Libyan National Unity Government, Abdelhamid Dbeiba, reaffirmed that immigrants will not be allowed to settle in Libya, stressing that the country's laws are capable of regulating everything related to the entry of foreigners. Dbeiba pointed out on his page on the X website that supporting security efforts to protect his country's land borders is a top priority for work and one of the most prominent tasks of his government, pointing to the strong support for the efforts made by the Minister of Interior with its counterpart in Tunisia to protect the common borders, clear them of illegal immigrants and facilitate the movement of citizens.
Once again, I affirm that we will not allow immigrants to settle in Libya, as the laws of our country are capable of regulating everything related to the entry of foreigners into it. We're very keen to provide humanitarian assistance to migrants and to facilitate their return to their countries from which they came. And we will continue to target and strike migrant smuggling dens everywhere we reach. The European Union and neighboring countries must cooperate with us and support our efforts. Preserving Libyan national security is red line, which we will not allow to be crossed under any circumstances, in order to preserve our country and its demographic map.
Also, the UN envoy to Libya, Abdullah Batili, asked in his first meeting with the new head of the Supreme Council of the State, Mohammed Tikala, to continue working to reach a broad political agreement that would get the country out of the political deadlock. Batili indicated on the X platform that he expressed during the meeting his aspiration to continue working with Tikala and the Council in order to reach the desire of the Libyans to choose the leaders to unify the institutions and achieve peace and stability. In South Africa, officials said that former President Jacob Zuma appeared at the Escort Correctional Facility on Friday and was released under a remission process. The decision comes after a constitutional court last month rejected an attempt to overturn a decision by the lower court that found Zuma's release on medical paroles was unlawful and that he should return to prison to finish his sentence. Zuma was jailed in 2021 for failing to comply with the constitutional court order to appear before a commission of inquiry investigation allegations of corruption during his 9-year presidency.
Former president came in at 6 o'clock and he left after 7 o'clock. And he left after all the administrative processes that were required to be undertaken in line with the criteria that as the National Commissioner have approved of implementing the mission that was approved by the President had been undertaken.
To the Middle East now, a Palestinian 23-year-old was killed and 4 others were injured by the Zionist forces' gunfire last night in the raid operation of Tel Karam refugee camp in the north of the occupied West Bank. Mourners marched in a funeral procession of Mahmoud Jihad Jarad and departed from Martyr Tahbat Hospital in Tel Karam to the house of the martyr's family in the eastern neighborhood, where the last farewell look was given to him. Along to the procession, cheers supporting the resistance and calling for its escalation to defend Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now moving on to the European continent, Deputy Head of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, asserted that Ukrainian capitulation is the only path to peace, something that said Washington and Kiev did not want to. Medvedev added that people suffering in the foxholes of a divided country, referring to Ukraine, truly need nothing more than surrender.
The people suffering in the trenches of a divided country really need only capitulation, which could potentially pave the way for peace. However, neither Washington nor Kiev wants peace.
Following a series of high-profile corruption cases caught headlines in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on Friday the dismissal of all military recruitment officers in the country. Zelensky said in a review of Ukraine's recruiting centers revealed signs of professional abuse ranging from illegal enrichment to transporting draft-eligible men across the border despite a wartime ban.
Наші рішення наступні.
Our decision is the following. We are firing all regional recruitment chiefs. The system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery during war is treason. Warriors who served at the front line or who cannot remain in trenches because they have lost their health, limbs, but maintain dignity and don't have cynicism can be trusted to run the system.
Russia's international reserves of gold and foreign currency have increased to about $590 billion in early August. According to data from the Russian Central Bank, the country's reserve increased by $7 billion, 0.5, while gold reserves rose during the past month by 2% at more than $145 billion. Russia has launched on Friday a spacecraft that is headed to the moon for the first time in nearly 50 years. The Russian lunar mission is the first since 1976, and according to the Director General of the Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, Yuri Borisov, the Luna 25 is expected to land on the moon in the 21st of August. If this happens, Russia will be the first to land on the south side of the moon, which is likely an area that contains deposits of water ice. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has stated on Thursday that the United States would not offer sanctions relief to Iran under the deal that would free 5 Americans. In addition to that, he said, Iranian private funds will be transferred to restricted accounts, so they can only be used for humanitarian purposes. Blinken told reporters at a news conference that the State Department, in contact with the families of prisoners, as they said, were released from prison to house arrest in a first step towards the release.
I'm also not going to get into any of the details. The State Department has been in contact with the 5 Americans. We spoke to them today. I think they're, needless to say, very happy to be out of prison, but we want to make sure that we complete this process and bring them home to their family.
Death toll from Hawaii's wildfire raised of 55 as the island faces the deadliest U.S. wildfire since 2018, Camp Fire in California, which killed at least 85 people. Around 1,000 people are missing in Maui after flames ripped through the Hawaiian island. More in this report.
At first glance, this looks like a ghost city abandoned and destroyed. From above, the devastation is clear, an apocalyptic view never seen here before. The speed of the flames, fanned by the winds of a distant hurricane, gave little time for residents to flee. As a consequence, 55 of them were killed.
Hey, if anybody's still out here, it's time to go!
Many others were trapped in the middle of a ring of fire inside the island that was turned into a hellscape of ash and rubble.
And this is going to go on for a while. This is going to take years to recover. And it just breaks my heart that all the history from back in the whaling days of the 1800s, dust, ash and dust.
Honolulu firefighters, vehicles and relief supplies arrived to support the island. Officials say firefighters continue to battle the flames.
There will be grants for individuals from FEMA. There will be support for rental aid. There will be support for small businesses.
The severity of the wildfires on Hawaii Island is blamed on the extremely dry conditions and the topography of Maui's western coastline.
That part of Maui has a very steep mountain range, and the winds were coming from the northeast, and they were very strong winds. They were descending, going up and over the mountain range and descending what we call the lee side. And when that happens, you get acceleration near the surface. And so you get actually faster winds on the downslope side or the lee side of the mountain range.
Tourists coming to Hawaii had their holidays cancelled by a natural disaster, which is one of the deadliest US wildfires in recent years.
Ending up with China rainfall, local Chinese authorities said 29 people had been killed in disasters triggered by the recent round of heavy rain in North China Hebei province. The disaster also caused tens of billions of economic losses. Last week, Hebei was hit by serious flooding as remnants of the typhoon battered the region and brought the heaviest rainfall in neighboring Beijing in at least 140 years. With this disaster, we reach the end of our news bulletin. Thank you ever so much for taking part with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.